There is a person in your life right now who is not what they appear to be. They smile at the right moments. They say the right things. They have given you no specific reason to doubt them. And yet something is wrong. You feel it. That quiet unease that lives just below the surface of a conversation. That slight wrongness you cannot name. That instinct you have trained yourself to ignore. Because it feels impolite. Because it feels paranoid. Because you were taught that suspicion is a character flaw. It is not a character flaw. It is perception. And perception, precise, trained, deliberate perception, is the most powerful cognitive tool a human being can develop. This video is about that tool. Not intuition, not guesswork, not vague feelings about vibes. The systematic, psychological art of reading what is actually happening inside another human being while they are standing directly in front of you. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never look at another person the same way again. Every human being exists on two levels. The surface level is the one they manage. It is constructed consciously, optimized for reception, built to produce a specific impression in the mind of the observer. This is the level most people spend their entire lives on, crafting it, maintaining it, defending it. The second level is the one they cannot manage. It leaks through the body, through timing, through the gap between what is said and what is done, through the micro moments of expression that fire and disappear before conscious control can suppress them. The art of reading minds is not telepathy. It is the systematic observation of the second level. The art of reading minds is not telepathy. It is the systematic observation of the second level. The level people cannot curate, cannot rehearse, cannot protect, because it operates faster than thought. The human brain processes reality at approximately 11 million bits of information per second. The conscious mind is aware of approximately 40. The other 10,999,960 bits, they are being processed. They are affecting behavior. They are leaking through the body in real time, and most people are completely blind to this. The reader of minds is not, before human beings had words, they had bodies. And the body developed an extraordinarily precise vocabulary over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Fear produced specific physical configurations because those configurations improved survival. Eyes widening to take in more light, nostrils flaring to gather more information, muscles tensing for immediate action. Dominance produced different configurations. Space expansion, chest broadening, chin rising. The physical assertion of status that required no announcement. Submission produced its own vocabulary. Space reduction, shoulder rounding, gaze lowering, the body communicating surrender before the mouth could form the words. These configurations are still running. In every person you have ever met, in every conversation you have ever had, they are ancient. They are automatic. And they are happening right now. In the people around you, whether those people are aware of them or not. The reader of minds learns this language, not as an intellectual exercise, as a living, active, real-time translation tool. The body has one primary response to psychological threat, the same response it has always had to physical threat. The limbic system activates. Cortisol and adrenaline flood the system. The body prepares for survival, and here is what makes this useful. The body cannot distinguish between a tiger in the bush and a question it does not want to answer. Both register as threat. Both activate the same system. Both produce the same physical response. Which means, when you ask a question and the person across from you involuntarily touches their neck, shifts their weight, compresses their lips, or breaks eye contact, their body has just told you something their words have not. That question touched something real. The stress response is the most reliable signal in the human repertoire, precisely because it cannot be faked. You can fake a smile. You cannot fake the absence of a stress response. The neck touch, one of the most reliable pacifying gestures known, appears when a person is experiencing psychological discomfort. The hand moves to the neck to self-soothe, to stimulate the vagus nerve, to reduce the cortisol spike. It is not a conscious choice. It is the nervous system trying to calm itself down. When you see it, note what produced it, because whatever produced it is where the truth is being protected. Most people believe they can identify a liar. They are wrong. Research consistently shows that human beings perform at approximately chance level, 50% accuracy, when trying to detect deception in others. Not because deception is impossible to detect, because people are looking in the wrong places. They look for the wrong signals. They have been taught myths. The myth that liars avoid eye contact. False, practiced liars maintain eye contact deliberately. They know the myth. They compensate. The myth that liars touch their face. Partially true, but so do people who are simply thinking. The signal is too broad to be diagnostic alone. The myth that liars fidget. Also false. Anxiety produces fidgeting. Many liars suppress movement. They become unnaturally still. Stillness under the pressure of a direct question is actually more diagnostic than movement. The correct architecture of deception detection is this. Look for inconsistency, not between behavior and some imagined baseline of truth-telling, but between the verbal and the nonverbal. When a person says yes, while their head subtly moves no. When a person claims to be calm, while their breathing has shortened and their jaw has tightened. When a person expresses enthusiasm, while their body is turned away and their feet point toward the exit. The words and the body are telling different stories. One of those stories is managed. One of those stories is true. The body is never the managed one. There is a test so simple that most people overlook it entirely. Watch how a person treats someone who has no power over them. Not colleagues, not clients, not anyone whose opinion affects their outcomes. The waiter, the cleaner, the person behind the counter, the junior employee who will never be in a position to promote them. In these interactions where the performance serves no strategic purpose, you see the unmanaged version, the person who is warm, patient, and genuinely present with everyone, regardless of status, has a character that is not conditional. Their kindness is not a strategy. It costs them something, and they pay it anyway. The person who is charming upward and dismissive downward is showing you something critical. They have a hierarchy of human worth that places their own interests at the center. Everyone else is assigned value based on their utility to those interests. When you are useful, you will receive the warmth. When you are not, you will receive what the waiter receives. This single observation is worth more than a month of conversation because it shows you not how they behave when they are being evaluated, but how they behave when they believe no evaluation is occurring. That is always the most accurate data. Emotions leave residue. A person who experienced chronic criticism in childhood will flinch internally, almost invisibly, when evaluated by authority figures. Even decades later, even when they have achieved considerable power, a person who experienced betrayal in a significant relationship will create distance at the precise moment of potential closeness. Not because they want distance, because the body remembers what the mind has tried to process. A person who grew up with unpredictability, with a parent or environment whose emotional state could not be anticipated, will spend enormous energy monitoring the emotional temperature of every room they enter. Reading faces, checking tone, tracking microshifts in the behavior of others. They learn to read people out of survival necessity, and they have never stopped. Understanding the emotional archaeology of a person, the history that shaped their patterns, is not therapy. It is intelligence gathering, because every behavioral pattern has an origin. Every trigger points to a wound. Every defensive move maps a previous attack. When you understand the history, you can predict the present. When you can predict the present, you are never surprised. And the person who is never surprised holds a profound strategic advantage over everyone in the room. In poker, a tell is an unconscious behavior that reveals the quality of a player's hand. The slight lip compression that appears with a weak hand. The relaxed breathing that accompanies strength. The overacted confidence that signals bluff. Every human being in every interaction has tells. The question is not whether they exist. The question is whether you have trained yourself to see them. Here is how you develop that training. Begin with observation before engagement, before you speak in a new situation. Before you introduce yourself, before you contribute, spend 2 minutes watching. Not thinking about what you will say next. Watching. How does each person hold their body? Who controls the space? Who defers to whom without being asked? Who speaks and who waits for permission to speak? Whose comfort matters most to the group? This 2-minute observation will tell you more about the power structure of a room than an hour of conversation. Then when engagement begins, develop a practice of asking questions to which you already know the answer. Not to expose anyone, to establish their baseline. Watch how they tell you something true. Note the quality of eye contact, the rhythm of speech, the stillness or movement of their hands. Now you have a reference point, a calibration. When their behavior deviates from that reference point, when the rhythm changes, when the stillness becomes movement, or the movement becomes stillness, you are seeing the tell. Something has shifted inside them. The question is what? One of the most useful tools in the reader's arsenal is the understanding of projection. People do not see the world as it is. They see the world as they are. The person who assumes everyone is competing with them is highly competitive themselves. The person who suspects everyone of lying has a complicated relationship with their own honesty. The person who consistently assumes negative motivations in others is protecting themselves against motivations they recognize internally. This is not an absolute law, but it is a remarkably consistent pattern. What people accuse others of most readily is often what they are most conscious of in themselves. Listen carefully to what a person criticizes. Not occasionally, consistently. What do they return to again and again? What quality in others triggers the strongest reaction? That reaction is a mirror. It is showing them something about themselves they have not yet been willing to look at directly. And it is showing you something about them that they have not yet been willing to show you directly. The accusations are confessions. You simply have to know how to read them. The reader of minds pays as much attention to what is not said as to what is. Silence is not neutral, it is loaded. The pause before an answer that should require no pause is information. The topic that never comes up in conversation, despite its obvious relevance, is information. The person who speaks extensively about everything and somehow never mentions a specific area of their life is protecting something in that area. Not necessarily something dark, but something they have decided is not for you. And the gap between what a person shares freely and what they protect carefully tells you what they consider vulnerable. What they consider vulnerable tells you what they value. What they value tells you what they fear losing. And what they fear losing is the most precise map of a human being that you will ever have access to. The art of reading minds carries a weight, because once you develop this capacity, once you train your observation to this level of precision, you cannot unknow what you see. You will sit across from people and understand things about them they have not chosen to tell you. You will see the fear beneath the confidence, the loneliness beneath the performance, the wound beneath the defense. And you will have a choice about what to do with that understanding. You can use it strategically, to position yourself, to protect yourself, to navigate power dynamics with precision. And there are times when that is exactly right. But there are also times when what the observation reveals is not a threat to be managed, but a human being to be seen. The most powerful readers of people are not the coldest. They are the most precise. They see clearly. They act from clarity. They are neither deceived by performance, nor unmoved by what the performance is protecting. They hold both, the strategy and the humanity, the intelligence and the compassion, the precision and the recognition that behind every managed performance is a person who learned to manage it because at some point the unmanaged version was not safe. See clearly, act wisely, and remember, the mind you are most obligated to read is your own shadow doctrine. For those who refuse to be managed,